I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Hi, everyone. I've got a really, really special show today. Not to put any pressure on our guests, but it really is a special show. I know you all have heard me talk about the Red Caped Quattro. Those of you that are longtime listeners, that is, Andrea Schneider, Michelle Mallon, and Christine Louis de Cannonbell. Well, we've got, another two a part of this whole red caped thing here that is just so exciting. So you longtime listeners, what we're going to be talking about, but we're, instead of calling it narcissistic abuse, which has turned into something a little odd, we're going to call it hidden abuse. And so please let me welcome Shannon and Paula. Please introduce yourselves, ladies.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and I'll go first. I'll be the brave one here, and I would say pink cape, but I'm not a pink person. But pink, red, whatever color, rainbow.
Yeah,
but
there you go, rainbow. I like that. That's inclusive to everybody,
right? Let's be inclusive. But thank you so much, Kristen, for having us. And the Quattro that you named, I know that Paula and I just revere you and revere all that you mentioned. And so we're just humbled to be on here with you. And thank you for the opportunity.
And you are a licensed clinical...
I'm a licensed professional counselor, supervisor in Texas. And I am just in a suburb of Dallas, and I'm in North Texas. I've been practicing for 28 years, and I started my training in a domestic violence outreach program. And so they could still be living in this situation, or they could be survivors of sexual abuse and domestic violence. And, back in that day, there wasn't really known to be a thing called narcissistic abuse.
Right.
And I really appreciate you saying hidden abuse, because as clinicians, we do not diagnose people we don't work with. So Paula and I have really wanted to make sure that we say hidden abuse, but also because of the insidious nature of it and the covert, subtle, over such a long period of time. That's the other reason. I'm also a survivor to thriver, and sometimes it's easier to say thriver.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes. So the passion is just burning in my belly to, make sure that the work that we do is a crusade, and that we do this with inspiration. inspiration to make a difference in people that we work with, but also public awareness. And so that's, what we're up to. The work that I do is I do neurobiological, evidence-based work with my clients in practice. I work with individuals and I do a group program, and I call it the Moxie Recovery Program. And it's because I want to unleash the Moxie that women really do already possess. And I also work with men. I have several men in my practice who are survivors as well.
Well, thank you for coming on. All right. Next excellent guest.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristen. I'm Paula Tiemann, and I have been a licensed therapist for about 22, 23 years now. Started my career working with kids and teens with trauma. So trauma has always been on my radar. Only in the last few years, like Shannon was saying, going through and uncovering and recovering from this trauma myself, have I become really tuned into the idea of narcissistic abuse, hidden abuse, emotional abuse. And that is about 95% of my practice right now. And I am just continuously amazed at how damaging this form of abuse is, how this just decimates people's lives. Especially impacting children. I think we've talked about before, I'm just amazed at the dearth of research on this for how do we really help people? How do we set clinical guidelines for this? How do we, attend to the concerns of parents on how can I protect my children? Even if I've been able to leave this abuser, how can I protect my children and immunize them against the effects of potentially spending 50% of their time with an abusive, minimizing, narcissistic person? So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you both. And we're going to get into an organization that you've created. So can you, one or both of you, share what it's called? This is really important, listeners, what it's called and how it came to be.
Sure. Shannon, would you like to go? Would you like me to intro it a little bit?
How about you?
Sure. So Shannon and I came together several months ago, just as she was saying, out of a shared passion for this. There's a lot of us, and Kristen, I have to tell you, I'm so honored to be included or even mentioned in the same sentence as Andrea Schneider and Christine Louise de Cannaville. But there's so many of us doing this work in silos, anecdotally doing what we do. So Shannon and I were really fortunate to connect probably 6 or 8 months ago and have been just slowly starting to figure out how can we create, almost like a network of professionals that are doing this work. How can we create a repository or a directory for therapists that are doing this work to make this search for survivors a little bit less cumbersome? So we're calling ourselves the Hidden Abuse Network.
Love it.
Yes, it's sort of to attend to, is this narcissistic abuse? Some people don't like that word, emotional abuse, but I think hidden abuse really comprises what it feels like to be a survivor and not be able to access resources, information. A lot of them feel like they're going crazy and what's wrong with me because they're observing all of those projections. So that's what we're called. And our website is hiddenabuse.net.
And we'll give that out again several times so everybody gets that down. And I'm actually going to create a page, which I don't think I've told you guys this, but why wouldn't I do this? I'm going to create a page on the network site with whatever images you guys have created for this, or I'll create one, doesn't matter to me. And then I'll have the shows that we do together on there. And if you guys end up having your own podcast or we meet other people out there that are really part of this vision and they want to be on a show and or have a podcast, there'll be a place for them to be found on the network easily to get all that good information.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So we've talked about many, many, many things. And one thing I want to bring up to the two of you being mental health counselors yourselves, some of the things that I have heard, over the 10 years, my God, 10 years I've been involved in this type of a
Oh
thing.
my
'Cause
gosh.
remember, I started my show out of my mental health news radio. I started out of coming out of having that first awakening that this is narcissistic abuse. It certainly wasn't my first rodeo with that kind of abuse, but it was the one that we all meet the one that makes you go, what is this hell I'm in? And then find people's articles, like me finding Andrea's articles on covert narcissism. And I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So 10 years of watching the periphery of this in terms of counseling. I've heard so many life coaches, and nothing against life coaches at all, but I've heard people that aren't counselors bashing counselors, saying, well, they don't know anything about this. I wasn't helped. Some of them are narcissists themselves, and they're out there hurting people. And all of those things can be true because, you can have a president of the United States be a narcissist. You can have the local minister. You can have your counselor. Of course it happens, but I never liked, because I created this whole network out of a love for what you guys do for a living, what you choose to do. I always was like, I don't know that I want to support somebody that just makes a blanket statement about all counselors are bad. So have you guys heard this as well? And what do you say about it?
Is it okay if I go, Paula?
Absolutely, please.
And step in. So you are so accurate about that statement. And that also is part of what brought Paula and I together, because there is probably not a single person who has been scathed by hidden abuse that has been in an office in couples counseling or an individual that has not been re-victimized because of a therapist not knowing how to detect hidden abuse.
Yep.
So that's the other reason why hidden abuse has such a good connotation, because it is so pervasive and that it is very difficult to see, because you don't have people coming into a therapeutic office complaining about their husband. In fact, it's quite the opposite, that they have the perfect husband, or they're minimizing, denying what's going on. And so what happens is it often takes such a long time to uncover the truth of what's happening. So, there really has been the situation that therapy has a really bad rap, and for a right reason. It's very accurate. And, there are therapists who are narcissists. Narcissists embed themselves in places of power. Right. And so we wanted to do this because Paula and myself actually were in that same position. We both were victimized as clients with our partners. And so we know what that's like to be on the other side of the couch and be the one pointed out to be the, antagonizer, the abuser, and given homework to do with that. So again, great point in saying that, it's very dangerous to make generalizations. And what we really want to be cognizant of is that there are not every single victim out there is dealing with what we call complex PTSD, but I would give a very liberal, percentage of people who have been victimized by hidden abuse. I would say are definitely in the 90 percentiles. And so it takes clinical intervention to deal with complex PTSD. And so that's why we were also heavily and passionately wanting to do this outreach as well, because I don't know, life coaches can sometimes be dual credited to provide that kind of training, but people need to interview therapists just like they would going into a job. So we want to be able to provide that kind of information of, we realize that that happens. And so wanting to help people be able to, siphon that process. How do you find therapists who know about hidden abuse? Because that does happen. And man, that is the worst feeling, to go seek help and then only to be re-victimized again.
Oh, absolutely. Shannon's bringing up a good point, and I want to make a really important distinction that I do know absolutely there are therapists and ministers and, heads of agencies that are narcissists. But I also want to give credit to therapists who just have not been trained to spot this. At the DSM in all of our clinical training treats or teaches us to spot the overt Donald Trumpian sort of narcissists that are very flagrant and big in a room, but nowhere in any of my training, and I think Shannon and I have talked about this, nowhere in any of that training did anybody teach me about covert narcissism and how different that can look from overt narcissism or the training that we get. So that's another thing we'd like to see happen is when we do our clinical hours and sit for our licenses or renew our licenses, we need to do continuing education credits. And part of that for California includes domestic violence training, but nowhere in there talks about hidden abuse or this sort of more overt or covert narcissism and how damaging that can be to our clients, how much trauma that can cause. So I don't mean to get on a tangent, but I do want to give credit to therapists that are very, very well-meaning, but perhaps because they don't understand hidden abuse, they can do a lot of damage to our clients.
Yeah. And I mean, just, I've been to different therapists and certainly been on the receiving end of not great advice, while also knowing, this person is a human being. I mean, I can't go in there, and completely submit my will. None of us should do that. And often, narcissists absolutely love beguiled or guileless, naive, super caring, undiscerning people, which I absolutely even praised myself for being those things. And now I'm like, okay, no. But I certainly sat with a therapist, and I remember her going, well, we've had 3 sessions and you've spent the entire time talking about this person. So, obviously there's something that we need to work on here. And what she got into later with me was, that this is, yes, that was true. Yes, obviously that's a problem, but her thing was around how it's very shaming about that. And I should be embarrassed that I would just keep talking about this person instead of, why are you talking about this person? What's going on here? So it can even be little things like that where you're like, I'm just not being heard. And now I feel ashamed for even having this problem. This isn't helpful therapy.
Absolutely.
Well, that part about not being believed is because you're already in that cycle of the crazy making. So to go seek the mental health, care, and then that to be reinforced, that often can keep somebody inside of that dangerous relationship, because then they're validated what I am the crazy one. And, Paula is correct, because often the therapist is, well-intended. And so they just don't realize that they've endangered somebody.
Yes.
And so then they're trapped inside of this cyclonic, narcissistic pattern. And so it can really wreak havoc. So I love that you did bring that up, because that's something we really are passionate about, wanting to, create a global awareness of. And what better way than having, this best practices on a website,
Exactly. So people will be able to come to the site and find therapists that specialize in this, that are really vetted. Not that everything's perfect, but vetted with training, workshops. I mean, that's the starter of the goal, some of the goals, correct?
Absolutely. It's Shannon and I being able to do that legwork for clients. when you're in a place where you've started, and this happens to almost all of my clients, will say, I didn't know what was going on, but I started doing a Google search and that's how I figured this out. It's very rare to me that a therapist will bring this to a client's attention. So when you're in that place, you are in the midst of trauma, you're minimized, you may be extremely depressed. I mean, it really feels like, we all know it here, it feels like your world is falling apart. And then for a client to be expected to do all the legwork and that it takes when you're in that traumatized place, to ask for resources, to hear that a therapist may be completely booked, but here's a couple more names. It just takes a tremendous amount of searching for a client in that trauma place to be able to find somebody who actually gets it. So that's part of it. And this, I know I didn't say my license is social work, so I'm thinking more of the systems and how can we improve access for people? How can we sort of take that battle and that journey to find a provider that actually gets that, take it away from the clients and have a centralized place for people to go for information.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And that's what's phenomenal about this. And listeners, all those of you that have been around since the beginning, God help you. But, you've seen me on air get all whipped up about some new person that I should not be around and invite in to talk to victims of narcissistic abuse. So I've done it. I've done all the wrong things as we can in life. And so I'm always hesitant to get involved in anything like this, but especially with what's going on in my own life right now. But when I talked to you guys, the fact that Andrea is the one who introduced us, and I just feel it when, it's that same feeling I get when I'm with the Red Cape Quattro, this this, cone of safety right here. And reality, there's no pie in the sky. There's no, this is a reality based place that you're starting from. And I'm hopefully, going to be helpful and people finding out about this. So that's really what we all care about. And we've all been through our own shite. So
yeah, shite's a very good word for that.
I think what I want to focus on, and we're going to do, more shows, but it's always interesting to me, especially as we head into the holidays. We're coming into Thanksgiving, we're coming into Christmas, we're coming into Hanukkah, all these things that bring up family stuff and, around some of the people that have been absolutely horrible and a wrecking ball through our lives. And also, as you guys mentioned, helping people who are living in a relationship with someone like this, and there's not an easy exit plan for them. Maybe they have to, kids, finances, whatever. I'd like to get into, how do you help people navigate what's going on when no contact is so much easier to in terms of like dealing with your own trauma and having the inflamed constant barrage from being in proximity to this person. When that's out of the way, you actually can heal a lot more peacefully. So how do you do that when you can't just have no contact?
Shannon, you want to take this one first?
Sure. So I am so glad that we are meeting at this time, because this is, we're headed into where people are also grieving losses of all sorts of kinds. And so the same is applicable, right? Because you can grieve someone that is right in front of your face.
Yeah.
And so that's also hidden abuse. They're right in front of you, but you're grieving the idea of what is to be. And so we're surrounded by, society's messages of how holidays are supposed to be. We've got the great Hallmark Channel, and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm in a relationship that's toxic or out of it. But again, the one thing we have control over is our perception at all times. And when we're inside of our trauma, and it's complex PTSD, that is one thing that is very difficult to manage, because Paula mentioned earlier, and Kristen, you did as well. When we're in severe trauma, our prefrontal cortex is offline, meaning that's the part of our brain that can make sense of things. So you have the holidays coming and it's really offline. And so our clients get petrified about how do they handle their families. They don't feel choice in the matter often. And so they're not very savvy with setting boundaries. They don't often want to do the no contact. So I love that you brought this up, because it's so important for them to be empowered as much as possible. So this station that you created is phenomenal. The fact that there are many people creating this kind of awareness, it's put as many, objects in your life as possible. So have these sort of, resources where you can hear people encouraging you, write things down. Because if your own, executive functioning's offline, you need as many resources that you can grab to hold you up, give you ground to stand on. And so having a great support system, who are your friends? So, and then dosage. I always say dosage people. Your family can be dosage people. So have a plan A through Z. I don't say ABC. I say A through Z.
Yeah.
So making sure that you are, having a plan that you drive separately to see your family. And just to know you really do have your own agency. And so they often, because they're not very grounded, that they do have agency. So I often will give my clients, I say, you know what, we have DIY, it's called YouTube. And so on YouTube, there are exercises to ground them. And so like polyvagal exercises, there's exercises for grounding. And so that's what I often do, is empower them with tools and boundaries, because they don't feel often that sense of rootedness. And so that's what I do. But it's kind of a long process for some of our clients that are, really dysregulated in their trauma, to know and feel that empowerment of no contact.
Yeah. And it's also, sometimes, it's your spouse or someone that you're living with and you can't go no contact. And so maybe you've come to a place of somewhat peaceable living, but then you throw the holidays in the mix of that. And that can throw your, peace that you've created with a very, person that absolutely does not want peace at all anywhere in their lives, but somehow you've configured it to where, okay, I can get through this because of the kids or because of finances or because of whatever, and still be in this relationship for now, or maybe forever, whatever the situation is. No judgment about that. But I've made it to where I can handle this. We're good. And then Merry Christmas.
No.
Yeah.
Kristen, I'm so glad you're bringing
very merry, right?
I think your original sort of topic was talking about how we help people leave these relationships.
Yeah.
It is so complicated. And I really want to stress how much psychoeducation really needs to go into helping prepare somebody to leave. And that's where I think, all the resources on YouTube, all the books that are out there are so helpful. But it really is helping people understand the true addictive nature of these relationships, and helping somebody, if they can see this clearly and they decide they want to leave, it's doing a lot of preparing for when you have the urge to return. when you have the urge to break no contact, if you can do that. And it's also, and this is why Shannon and I are doing this work, is to impact all the other systems that are necessary for clients to be involved with. We're talking about the legal system. I always wanted clients to bring in domestic violence advocates, because
Right.
we do our work is more clinically. How do we help somebody see this? How do we validate clients? How do we help them sort of get out of this and then start to heal the trauma? But there's a very real threat that happens to a lot of our clients where they will be monitored. They will have spyware on their computers. They will, have I've heard cameras being installed in houses. I'm continuously amazed at the stories I hear about how these abusers stalk and victimize and monitor our clients. So there is so much education that needs to go into this and helping prepare somebody to leave, even as far as like taking documents and valuables. If you're, I call it, I don't remember who to give this credit to, but somebody, when I was doing this research, called it like the golden time. If you have the blinders off and if you understand this is happening to you and you're planning on leaving, you have a golden opportunity to start preparing very quietly. I always say, put copies of your passport somewhere, put anything that's valuable, slowly start to make copies of things, get a financial picture of what's going on. Cause I hear that very frequently too. There's a hidden account with $500,000 in it that somebody might not know about or have access to. So it's very important when you're thinking about leaving to do all this sort of pre-work before you actually take that step.
Absolutely.
Yeah, safety is paramount. I mean,
People
people do not think with hidden abuse that it can become homicidal. And that's the thing, is all abuse escalates, and hidden abuse is often what can become homicidal. So Paula talking about how it really is a very meticulous process in therapy is like of great importance to emphasize. And so that's why we often will tell people, you know what, when people say, why doesn't she just leave? That's a very irresponsible and dangerous
Absolutely.
statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, I loved it.
so
I
much more scientific than that.
Absolutely. I loved it when I saw Evan Rachel Wood, who was with the
Yes.
rocker Marilyn Manson. She was on the Drew Barrymore show. And I'm not saying that this was bad on Drew Barrymore's part. I say this because I'm an interviewer as well. And sometimes we ask questions that we already know the answer to, or we know that it's an incendiary question, but it's going to bring up dialogue that's really could be vital to people. So I'm not putting Drew Barrymore down. She asked that question about, well, why did you stay? And I don't know her, I don't know these people. So who knows what she meant by that. But I loved Evan Rachel Wood's answer without shaming Drew, without shaming her interviewer. She was so eloquent. She said, the fact that I, get asked this question, I mean, the tone of her voice, everything was just so non-shaming. This girl has done her freaking work in therapy, let me tell you. But
That's awesome.
she said, the fact that I get asked this tells me how much more we need to educate people about this.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just was like, wow, that is someone who knows her stuff. And I love how much people are catching on, and this has become part of mainstream conversation. And even though that's wonderful, it's also hidden abuse. So even with all this more awareness and so on, there's still so much, work to be done. And really so much around what am I learning from this? Okay, so I'm in a new stage of this. What did I learn from the last stage? And what am I learning about this now? And what is it telling me about myself? And how is it impacting my other relationship? Am I involved with people other than this relationship that I would stay involved with? Should I get all my shit together? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that happens so frequently that in these relationships, you're isolated from family and friends and what would normally be your support system. So, I think that's a big part of it, is trying to plug back into all those old systems of support or finding new ones.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is I've noticed a lot with these kind of relationships that, they will, of course, isolate you from and cause division and take a wrecking ball through your life, financially, emotionally, everything. And they do isolate you from everything that you knew before. And suddenly you hate everything or there are so many things wrong with what you had before because you're being gaslit into believing that. And they'll bring their own support system in for you. Oh, these are your new friends. Well, of course, these new friends are all about supporting the narcissist, not you. And so I've seen that happen too. And it can be really subtle with like it is with covert narcissists, and it can be, very overt. So you do have to, be cautious about, well, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. I have friends. These are my new friends. I've championed these new friends. Are they really your friends? Are they serving your good, or are they serving your relationship with this person that's the puppeteer? So like I said, it's hidden abuse. It's called hidden for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Paul. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't want to get too off topic here, but to take that one step further, I've seen so much shame as of late, maybe the last 6 or 12 months, a lot of clients saying, not only did I get alienated from my people and become part of this new group, but a lot of times I've seen that group being sort of sexually promiscuous or sort of bringing, some of our clients into swinging situations and groups,
Right.
things. They get coerced into things they never would have done in the past in order to stay in this relationship because this seems normal. So again, I don't want to seem too off task or off point here, but a lot of survivors carry a lot of shame about some of these situations that they find themselves in to maintain their relationship.
Well, Paula, that's great. You brought that up because that's interesting. They get brought to an extreme outside of their values and belief systems, but then sometimes even within their own belief system. So I've seen it also in their dogmas, right? In their religious practices.
Yes.
They've been able to divide them inside of their, religious organizations too. And all of that has been created in a way to further trap them inside of that relationship. And so that's a great point that you did bring up. It's all part of that hidden process. So some of my clients that have been in the marriages or relationships or even, stayed in a work, it's all those different, hidden abuse
dynamics.
relationships. Like the 30 to 35 years, they're so ashamed they were in it for so long. But if you work a timeline with them, you see how it worked because of that very thing, how it was so interweaved and interlaced so subtly over such a long period of time.
It's a trip too. It's a trip to watch those dynamics play out and, to have somebody just say, well, I'm proud of this and I'm proud of these friends and I'm proud of And, I've said to people that, keep going back, to do the whole devalue, discard thing, the cycle all over again with the same core narcissist, to have them say that and to sit back and go, but do any of these people come to your home for dinner? Have they ever, in what way are you defining this friendship? Because the friendships that you had before were this, and this, and none of that's going on with these new people. And don't even, if it's a church situation, it's not the way that you have felt you're most spiritual in your life and the most influences in your life with regards to religion or spirituality, but you're clinging to this for dear life. And what I'm learning is you can't make someone disconnect. All reason they could be standing on top of I always use this picture for people. Okay, so whoever there's chaos all around. Fires, homes are burning all around. And the person that's standing on top of the biggest house that's burnt to the ground with the flamethrower is the narcissist.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes the narcissist doing it, and then it's you too, because you're still getting some juice out of this. I had a therapist say, "What's the pony in this for you?" And I finally figured out what the hell she meant. But
Yeah.
if you're doing it too, you're standing on that as well. You're burning houses down too, and there's no shame for you for that. It can be a stage. It takes time and different processes to get away, and some people never do.
And it's interesting because it's been relocations for businesses, for work. Yeah, you're right. And there's that cost benefit analysis on our part as well. Sorry, Paula.
Absolutely.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to bring up the point as well. Like when we're doing this work, a lot of clients unfortunately will go back, or they'll have what we call like a relapse and resume contact for a bit. And it's very important for us as therapists to just stay completely open and say ahead of time, if that happens, I want you to still contact me, because some clients will, I'll see a client for a few months and think we're doing really good, and they have a relapse and they want to disappear because they're so ashamed. And just like with addiction, it will happen. Okay, it happens sometimes, and
because it's an addiction, right? Like we're talking about addiction. Addiction is not just about substances, wine, beer, vodka, marijuana, fentanyl, whatever. It's not just about a drug. You can be you are groomed to be addicted to the chaos and the trauma of the relationship.
Right. That trauma bond is a thing. And we know that the intermittent reinforcement that people get from getting a hit of what that initial love bombing felt like, I think that's what people are really searching for, is I will tolerate all this poor treatment if I can get a glimpse of what it felt like at the very beginning, all that limerence, the love bombing, how intoxicating that feels. It's just unfortunate because it happens more and more rarely when people go back. And I say that cycle, if it happens and you go back, that cycle of abuse is likely to happen much more quickly.
Yes.
Much more harmfully than the initial times.
Yeah. They're not going to, these are emotionally lazy people, right? So they've already spent so much time and laid such groundwork to groom you and get you exactly where they wanted you. And so they're not gonna, like the lizard brain that they're in, they're not gonna output more the second time you come back. Forget it.
Oh, heavens no. They're so sophisticated and methodical about what they're doing.
Oh, God, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Even though, okay, and I want to, because I had this thought a couple weeks ago when I was thinking about this show. So yes, the things that they do can be very, very sophisticated, methodical, complex. But they also, what I found fascinating is when you sort of get out of, like, every time I looked at one of them that I knew, he looked like a movie star. And he just seemed like the most intelligent person ever. But once I got out of the relationship and did my work and whatever, I'd run into him. And I'm not trying to be a jerk and put somebody down. I'm just saying my rose-colored glasses were taken off. And I was like, I thought this person was attractive. I mean, they're just, it's weird to have this thing of so sophisticated and how they target you and the ability to do that while also being a complete dunderhead about other things.
Yeah.
Where you're like, how does that coexist here? Because the level of manipulation is so sophisticated, and yet,
Yes. It's only the strategies that are sophisticated.
Right. Exactly. It's not the actual, don't tie, like people used to say to me, well, all psychopaths have a high IQ. And I looked at them and I said, are you joking?
There's another generalization.
Yeah. Like, no, they're not. Some of them really are. Yeah. But some of them are, Forrest Gump level IQ. I mean, come on. Right. It's not.
So lots of euphemisms.
So yeah. And yeah, the level of, and you can, okay. So when you're dealing with someone that's, going back to do the rinse and repeat and all of that, it's really important, listeners. And I want to get you, of course, your guys' take on this, but as a friend or a family member of someone, it is really vital not to just wash your hands. If you need to, because your mental health and there's stuff going on for you and you need to take a step back, absolutely do that. But try not to just be like, whatever, because that invokes shame. And hopefully they will wake up again and realize, and maybe they needed to go through this stage again. You want to still be available enough if they come back and go, oh my God. So what do you say about that?
Paula?
Well, it's a fantastic point. It's sort of speaks to the point I was saying about us as therapists. We need to be the exact same way, non-judgmental at all, and understanding that going back into these relationships is part of this. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it's very common. So I think if friends and family members, there's that tendency, oh, you've been through this before. I'm tired of being the person that you lean on. But think about how it adds to the isolation in this kind of trauma. We want to be present for people. We want to be available. We want to say, this may have happened 12 times before, but I'm still here. I'm still here for you. How can I help? How can I support you? How can I connect you to getting help or support? I think
just like you would with someone who's an alcoholic, someone who has an eating disorder. Like we know now, I hope that we all realize that you don't go to 30 days of rehab and you're done. Right. That's not how addiction works. Addiction is also these kinds of relationships. So it's not going to be, oh, I found out what no contact is and I read some books. Boom. Now I'm never going to get involved in this kind of relationship and That's just not how it's not how it works.
And that's the other reason why we wanted to do this work, because people, I think, ascribe to what we thought was appropriate. I don't even know how long ago, but for addiction, the tough love.
Right.
And I say, tough love, what that looks like is tough, meaning it's tough on the person that's instituting boundaries, right, in the sense of, I'm going to set this boundary saying, I'm not going to enable the addictive behavior, saying, go back. The tough part is I'm going to institute boundaries that are good for you. But the love part is I am always here for you. And my love for you is unconditional. And I'm always going to, speak the truth with you, but I will never shame. So what that would look like in a relationship is, to be able to say, yeah, I hear you. I see you. I believe you. And I'm here no matter what. And I'm not going to tell you what you already know. So I'm just going to be your safe landing spot. The tough part is having to go through watching it happen.
Oh, yeah, it's excruciating. And when they try to co-opt you into the game with this person as well, and have you be a chess piece as part of it. And the narcissist also wants that because they got so much juju out of it with you too. The first time.
Yes, they love
it's
family.
Like, you just kind of have to sit back and go, okay, I love you, and I'm also detaching from this, and here are boundaries around this for my own mental health, and also for you. And we'll see what happens here. We'll see.
Exactly. So I think, I'm so glad, again, you're mentioning these really key points it's always good, but especially as we're entering the holidays, because people feel so disempowered because of societal messages and other messages too, but particularly you cannot escape the messages right now.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're in it, and there are many narcissists that love to ruin any kind of happy family thing because that's what they do, and you're going to be the scapegoat for that unless they're in the love bombing stage, and if you, the intended target for them, is not willing to be the scapegoat because of whatever stage you're in, somebody else will be, maybe a beloved family member, and then there'll be a rift, and and then you've got to heal that too. So that's why it's hidden, because it's not just about you, the target. It's also about whoever else can this narcissistic person who needs supply. They're going to get supply from as many places as possible. And so if you get roped into the game again, even though you're not the intended target, you're going to get hit with some dung.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about that all the time in my groups, is that a narcissist will want, ideally, they're going to get what we sometimes call positive supply. They want admiration, attention, adoration. And it's really important to know if they don't get that source of supply, they will go to negative supply, creating drama, creating conflicts. And that's where I think it's important to talk about the holidays, because this may happen.
Right. And it's okay to say, you're inviting me into your triangle, either the victim or the narcissist. You're inviting me into yet another triangle, and I don't accept your invitation.
Exactly.
I'm here if you need me, but I'm not, I don't accept the invitation to this party. It ain't my kind of party anymore.
I think it's important to think about, as we're going into the holidays, how can you plan it structurally for those days where escape is possible, or where an entire holiday is possibly not ruined by, somebody that has this potential to create the conflict and drama. So how can you keep this almost like a safe holiday, understanding boundaries and parameters for this person? It might mean changing the location of where you have a holiday, changing who you invite. It's important to think about ahead of time, though.
Yeah, it is. And to think about things I used to do things like I always, oh, you got something wrong with your computer? Okay. So I could spend most of the holiday in the den with a good excuse.
Yes.
or, oh, you have puppies. Oh, I'm going to be the person that pays attention to the dogs while y'all do your thing. And you're outside playing with the dogs.
Or there's some kind of allergy, or, you know.
Do it. It's whatever you got to do. So, okay. Thank you. We're going to do more of these. I'm excited about that. People I've learned over the years, sometimes listen to the same show again and again and again. And that's good, because that is your body craving new neural pathways be laid down. So I always think of it like train tracks. Your body is looking to jump the track it's been on. It's trying to get you. And when you listen to this kind of content again and again, there's nothing wrong with you. You're actually doing something good for your nervous system.
Yes.
So tell our listeners again where they can find out about this organization you guys have created.
Absolutely. The website is hiddenabuse.net. It's called Hidden Abuse Network. On there's links to how to contact Shannon or I. There's information about thinking about safely leaving and the steps to go through. As much clinical information as we can put on there, but just really happy to be here with you, Kristen, today, to be able to, hopefully reach some of your listeners.
Ditto. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to know both of you, and glad that you're doing this work.
And thank you for all of this, like just every single topic that we hit today, the timing, all of it.
Absolutely. Listeners, stay tuned. More to come, and stay after, because we're probably going to have some clips after the exit of how many times Kristen can screw up in a single hour. So there you go.
You or us? Like,
Okay, you could go ahead and go up and pause the recording and then we'll chat after.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristen Sananta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me. Till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Yeah, I don't know how people, I don't know how people ever. Sorry, everybody. We'll edit this, my car thing here. Shit. Let me turn my car on so my phone doesn't die completely.
no,
Okay,
it
there
almost
we go.
like went with your little statement there a little bit, like almost a jingle.
She's like, pay attention.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Maybe we'll keep it in or we'll clip this
I
out
know,
and put it at the end. Kristen's mistakes on shows. Joe, like our editor, likes to do that. Oh, this is one of Kristen's many. problems.
Yeah, I didn't know we were bringing sound effects to the table today. That's amazing.
I know, right? That's
So-
perfect.
So listeners, I'm still doing shows in the car because as many of you know, I came home to help with some issues with family and the internet there is like a hamster that's smoking a lot of marijuana, not really keen on running on the wheel to keep it going. We upgraded to maybe a weasel now that still smokes marijuana. So we have a little bit more, but it's not enough to do podcasts. So
Oh my gosh, I love it.
anyway,
In
So we
Texas,
are-
that would be an armadillo.
there you go. Yeah.